Salam, peace be upon you. My name is Mohammed Layiq Sediqi, the father of Holophase. Part 27, Book 9.7, Self-Reference and Closure. When the universe reads its own script. 9.7.1, Universe describing itself. Self-referential productions. Remember the language we are learning. There is one field, phi, the holophase, one continuous cyclic movement from which all of reality unfolds. When phi begins to change, its first derivatives appear, and with them, the three dimensions show themselves at once. Time as omega, space as k, and motion as v, built from both. Every higher derivative is a finer question about how phi changes, and each one casts three shadows together: a time shadow, a space shadow, and a motion shadow. These echoes mix and weave into one another, forming the patterns we call fields, particles, bodies, thoughts, and worlds. 1. In this picture, everything that exists is a living tapestry of phi, endlessly echoing through its derivatives and their dimensional shadows. Today, we listen to just one of those echoes. You are stepping across the most profound and mysterious threshold in Episode 9, the generative grammar. Our journey has taken us from the alphabet of phi, through the production of waves, fields, and defects, into the computational heart of generation, and up the scale ladder to hierarchical parse trees. We have learned how the universe writes every story, but now we turn to the story that contains all others, the story that bends back upon itself, the story of the story itself. We enter Book 9.7, Self-Reference and Closure. Today, in its first part, Universe Describing Itself, Self-Referential Productions, we confront a wondrous loop. The generative grammar of phi produces complex patterns. Some of these patterns are brains, some are computers, some are books and equations. And these patterns do something remarkable. They build models. They create internal representations, simplified maps, of the very world they are part of, a world made of phi. In other words, phi patterns are describing phi patterns. The language is speaking about itself. This is not a philosophical abstraction. It is a physical, dynamical process happening right now inside your mind as you hear these words. Your understanding, your mental model of holophase, is a specific, organized configuration of neural activity, a phi pattern in your brain. That pattern is about the phi pattern that is the rest of the universe. This is self-reference. Our anchor image for this climb is a master cartographer, drawing a detailed map of the continent she is standing on. She includes mountains, rivers, forests. And then, with meticulous care, she draws a small figure on the map, a cartographer holding a map. And on that tiny map within the map, she draws an even tinier cartographer. The map contains an image of itself being made. The continent is reality. The map is a theory, a model. The cartographer is an observer, a mind. And the infinite regress of maps within maps is the loop of self-reference. Today, we learn how the holophase grammar allows for, and perhaps even demands, such self-describing sentences. Here is the profound puzzle of this part. We claim that everything is a pattern in the phi field. This includes rocks, stars, and also brains and the thoughts they contain. A thought about a rock is a phi pattern. The rock itself is a phi pattern. So we have one phi pattern, the thought, that is about another phi pattern, the rock. How can a pattern refer to something outside itself? How can meaning, aboutness, arise within a purely physical grammatical system? And if it can, what are the rules, the grammar of self-reference, that govern this miraculous feat without leading to paradox or inconsistency? The answer lies in the concept of an internal model. A self-referential production is a specific kind of phi configuration where a subsystem, a modeler, enters into a stable dynamical relationship with the larger system, the world, such that the state of the subsystem correlates with and can predict aspects of the larger system state. The key is information. A phi pattern in a brain, a specific firing pattern of neurons, carries information about a phi pattern in the world, a tiger approaching, if the two are connected by a reliable, lawful causal chain. Light reflects off the tiger, enters the eyes, triggers photochemical reactions, which trigger neural signals. This causal chain is itself a series of phi processes governed by the grammar. So the grammar provides the channels along which information flows, and it provides the substrate, the brain's neural network, that can mirror, in its own internal dynamics, the patterns flowing in. The thought tiger is not a tiger. It is a compressed, symbolic stand-in, a token that the brain uses to navigate the world. This token is effective because the brain's phi dynamics are such that activating the tiger token leads to avoidance behaviors that are, on average, beneficial for the organism's persistence. The token's meaning is its operational role within the larger, survival-oriented dynamics of the organism in its environment. In the Holophase view, meaning is not a ghostly add-on. It is a specific type of functional, dynamical relationship between nested phi patterns. Now we scale this up. A scientific theory, like the equations of general relativity written in a book, is a much more refined and abstract phi pattern. The ink on the page is a spatial phi configuration. When a trained physicist reads it, it induces a complex neural phi pattern that can manipulate symbols and make predictions about gravitational waves or black holes. The theory's aboutness, its reference to the curvature of spacetime, is again grounded in a long, reliable chain of phi processes, from experiment to data to mathematical derivation to publication to reading. The universe, through the phi grammar, has produced a subsystem, the scientific community with its theories, that contains a self-consistent description of the very gravitational phenomena that are part of the grammar's output. So here is the point. Self-reference is not magic. It is an advanced, stable, dynamical mode of the phi field. It occurs when the field's own complexity reaches a point where it can fold back on itself, creating internal states that serve as maps, models, or tokens for other parts of itself. The grammar allows for subsystems that encode information about the whole. Let's explore the triunity of self-referential productions, the time echo of self-reference, prediction, and memory. A self-referential system exists across time. It uses memory, a persistent phi pattern like a neural engram or a written record, to store information about past states. It uses prediction, running an internal simulation based on its model to anticipate future states. The time echo is this looping of temporal information. The present state of the modeler is shaped by past interactions with the world, and it projects forward to influence future actions upon the world. This creates a causal loop where the world shapes the model and the model shapes future world states. Time becomes self-referential through memory and anticipation, the space echo of self-reference, the map, and the territory. In space, self-reference creates a relationship between two distinct phi configurations, the territory, the actual world, and the map, the internal model. The map is a smaller, simplified, often symbolic representation that exists within a bounded region of space, a brain, a book, a computer chip. The space echo is this isomorphism at a distance. The spatial pattern of ink on a page or electrical potentials in a circuit is arranged to have a structural similarity, a correspondence, to the spatial relationships of galaxies or atoms out there in the world. The map is not the territory, but its pattern points beyond itself. The motion echo of self-reference, adaptive control. The motion of a self-referential system is goal-directed and adaptive. Because it has a model, it can simulate the outcomes of possible actions and choose one. A bacterium moving up a chemical gradient, a bird building a nest, an engineer designing a bridge, all involve motion guided by an internal representation, simple or complex, of the environment. The motion echo is model-guided agency. The phi dynamics of the modeler are no longer just reactive, they are teleological, shaped by the predictive content of the internal model. The system's motion becomes about achieving a state that exists first as a pattern in its internal model. Now, let's locate this momentous node on the master tree. We are at the root of Book 9.7, Self-Reference and Closure, a new and critical trunk growing from the core of Episode 9. This specific node, self-referential productions, depends on everything that came before, especially hierarchical generation to produce complex nested systems like brains, and computational generation to provide the information processing capacity. It enables the rest of the book, understanding measurement, consciousness, and the ultimate closure of the physical theory. It is the bridge from a universe that merely is to a universe that knows that it is. To make this abstract loop tangible, let's light lanterns from clear, self-referential acts. A near lantern from daily life. You recognizing yourself in a mirror. You look into a glass surface. Light, a phi pattern of electromagnetic waves, reflects off your face, travels, and forms an image on your retina. Your visual system processes this into a neural phi pattern. That pattern, in a healthy brain, is categorized not as another person, but as me. The phi pattern in your brain correctly identifies itself as the source of the reflected image. This is a primordial self-referential act, a physical system recognizing a distorted, delayed copy of its own physical state as being itself. The self model is the brain's ongoing representation of the body it is part of. The mirror test is a test of a specific kind of self-referential capability. A middle lantern from computer science. A quine. A quine is a computer program that, when run, prints its own source code as its output. It takes no input, it just outputs itself. This is a perfect syntactical example of self-reference within a formal language. The program's code, a pattern of bits in memory, when executed by the rules of the compiler and computer, the grammar, produces a new pattern of bits, the output, that is identical to the original code. The phi-field analog is a phi configuration whose dynamical evolution, under the phi grammar, produces a stable output pattern that is isomorphic to, a copy of, itself. Living systems are not quines. They're more like self-repairing, self-modeling programs. But the quine demonstrates that self-reference is a logically and physically possible construction within a computational grammar. A far lantern, from cosmology, the universe simulating itself. This is a speculative but profound frontier. If the laws of physics, the phi grammar, are computable, and if the universe contains enough resources, like a vast array of interacting quantum fields, could a sufficiently advanced civilization within the universe program a cosmological simulation that accurately models its own large-scale structure and history? In principle, yes. The simulation would be a phi pattern running on some substrate, a planet-sized computer. That pattern would be a model of the very phi pattern that contains it. This would be the ultimate self-referential production, the universe comprehending its own origin and destiny through a model instantiated within itself. While we are far from this, the mere possibility hinges on the self-referential capacity of the phi grammar. From mirror recognition to self-printing code to cosmic simulation, a unifying theme. A system can contain a representation of itself or its context. This representation is physically instantiated within the system, and its truth or utility is measured by how well it guides the system's successful interaction with the larger reality it is part of. What then is the specific language role of self-referential productions? They are the grammar rules for embedding metalanguage. They are the production rules that allow a sentence in the phi language to have, as its content, a statement about the phi language itself. In linguistics, this is the difference between the cat is on the mat, object language, and the sentence the cat is on the mat has 5 words, metalanguage. Self-referential productions are the mechanisms that allow the holophase language to construct meta-sentences, sentences that refer to other sentences or to the rules of grammar, all within the same medium. The core question this part asks about phi is, how can a subsystem governed by the phi grammar develop and maintain an internal state that reliably encodes information about the state of the larger system or the grammar itself, and how does this encoding influence the subsystem's future dynamics in a way that constitutes meaning or agency? We are moving from grammar that generates things to grammar that generates things that understand or model things. What does this self-referential capacity do in the generative process? It enables agency, goal-directed behavior, and adaptive learning. It underpins measurement and science as the process of building ever better models of the world. It creates the possibility of meaning, representation, and semantics as dynamical phenomena. It leads to the puzzle of closure. If everything is phi, then our best theories of phi are also phi patterns. Can a theory fully capture the system that produces it? Now, stability and breakdown. Self-referential systems are stable but fragile. They are stable when the internal model is sufficiently accurate and the feedback loops are balanced, like a thermostat maintaining a temperature. They are fragile because self-reference can lead to paradoxes and inconsistencies if not carefully constrained. The classic example is the liar paradox. This sentence is false. In dynamical terms, a system whose model contradicts its own state can enter pathological oscillations or freeze. Healthy self-reference requires mechanisms for grounding, tying symbols to sensory input, and consistency maintenance. The brain has many such mechanisms. The framework breaks down in cases of severe delusion or malfunction, where the internal model loses its reliable correspondence with the world. This brings us to our foundational commitment: falsifiability. The claim that thinking, modeling, and self-reference are physically instantiated as self-referential productions of the phi field is a bold, testable hypothesis. The central claim: any physical process that we agree constitutes modeling or representing external reality, from a bacterium's chemotaxis to a scientist's theorizing, must be mappable to a specific, identifiable phi configuration, whose dynamics show the hallmarks of self-reference. Specifically, the subsystem's internal state should 1. Correlate with specific external states via reliable sensory channels, encoding. 2. Evolve in a way that predicts future external states, simulation. 3. Guide action in a way that would be beneficial if the prediction were accurate, control. Furthermore, improving the model, for example through learning, should correspond to a refinement of the internal phi pattern towards a more accurate isomorphism with the external phi dynamics. A concrete measurement scene: neural decoding of a perceived object. A subject looks at a screen showing either an image of a face or a house. We use functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, to measure blood flow in the visual cortex, a coarse proxy for the underlying neural phi pattern. We collect many trials. We then use a machine learning algorithm, a decoder, to try to predict, from the fMRI pattern alone, whether the subject was seeing a face or a house. The pass condition, validation. The decoder succeeds at a rate significantly above chance. This demonstrates that the brain's phi pattern, the fMRI signal, encodes information about the external phi pattern, the image on the screen. This is the first step of self-reference, reliable correlation. More advanced experiments can show that the neural pattern evolves in anticipation of a change, or that it activates similar patterns when imagining a face, demonstrating predictive simulation. The fact that we can read out the percept from the physical brain state using an external tool, fMRI, and a decoder, strongly supports the claim that the aboutness of the perception is physically embodied in a specific phi configuration. The brain is literally making a map. The fail condition, falsification. Despite high-resolution neural data, we find no decodable information about perceived objects in any brain region. The brain's activity pattern when seeing a face is statistically indistinguishable from its pattern when seeing a house, or from random noise. This would mean the brain does not construct internal models that correlate with external reality in a discernible way. It would shadow the physicalist view of mind and directly falsify the claim that perception is a self-referential phi production. If even simple perceptual discrimination cannot be mapped to distinctive phi patterns, then the entire project of understanding thought as a physical process collapses. This falsifiability ensures that our foray into self-reference remains scientifically grounded, not just philosophically speculative. Let's cultivate a practical recognition skill. You can train your mind to recognize self-referential structures in any situation where a system creates a simplified representation of itself or its environment, and then uses that representation to guide its behavior. Watch a chess-playing computer. It holds in its memory a representation of the board state, a model. It runs simulations, future moves and counter moves, using the rules of chess, its internal grammar. It then chooses a move based on which simulated future leads to a better board state, guided by its model. The software and hardware are the physical phi pattern. The game is the world it models. Observe a pilot using a flight simulator. The simulator is a physical system, computers, screens, hydraulics, that creates a realistic internal model of an aircraft's dynamics and the outside world. The pilot's training involves building a neural model of flying. When in the simulator, the pilot's neural model interacts with the simulator's physical model. This is a system, pilot plus simulator, rich with self-reference, models interacting with models, all to improve the model that will guide real action. Consider a community making a map of its own territory. The map is a physical object, ink on paper, that stands for the hills, rivers, and roads. The community uses it to plan journeys, allocate land, and tell stories. The map is a shared externalized model that coordinates the group's behavior. The map is about the territory that contains the map makers. Whenever you see a system that uses a stand-in, a symbol, a plan, or a simulation to navigate reality, you are seeing self-reference. You are seeing the universe folding its knowledge of itself into a pocket of itself. We must connect this foundational insight directly to our Holophase journey. In the previous book, we saw the universe as a forest of parse trees. Now we see that some of the most complex branches on those trees, brains, cultures, scientific communities, are in the business of drawing diagrams of the very tree they are on. The generative grammar has produced subsystems that can infer the grammar. We haven't added a soul or a separate realm of ideas. We've simply followed the phi grammar to its natural, breathtaking conclusion. It can generate self-modelers. One field, with the right complexity and the right dynamical rules, becomes aware of itself. If you want to see the full mathematical derivations and exact equations behind this idea, the formalisms of information theory, integrated information, autopoiesis, and how they arise from constrained phi dynamics, you can search for Holophase on Zenodo. There you will find the scientific papers that this audio journey is built on. Let us pause here, at the entrance to book 9.7, and feel the significance. We are no longer just talking about how the universe writes stories of motion and force. We are talking about how it writes stories of understanding, stories that contain reflections of the whole. This is the gateway to the deepest questions of measurement, consciousness, and reality's ultimate coherence. In the next part, we will take a crucial step within this book. We will ask, if a phi pattern, an observer, makes a measurement of another phi pattern, what does the grammar say about the outcome? How does the act of measurement, a self-referential production where one part of the field interrogates another, fit into the seamless flow of phi? This leads us to measurement as interaction. Before we end, the mandatory zoom out to hold our scope. Self-referential productions, thoughts, models, maps, these are all intricate, stable configurations of the phi field. Their aboutness is a dynamical relational property that emerges from how they are causally coupled to the rest of the field. We have added no new substances, no spooky mental stuff. We have simply recognized a profound mode of operation of the one language, the mode where a sentence turns its gaze upon the page it is written on and begins to read. As we conclude, hold the image of the cartographer drawing the map of her continent, including herself. She is made of the same soil as the mountains she maps. Her ink is from the land. Her mind is a storm of patterns in that same land. And her map, though simplified, allows her to navigate the land more wisely. The Holophase universe is this cartographer. The phi field is the continent and the cartographer. The laws of physics are her innate drafting skills. And the map, our science, our art, our understanding, is the universe's own evolving self-portrait. We have just learned how the grammar allows the hand to draw itself. Salam, and peace be upon you.